Yep.
Okay. All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'm calling the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is I hope everyone has read, and we're going to vote on whether to approve the previous meeting minutes that took place on Thursday, November 5th.
I think you should take attendance first.
Oh, yes, attendance. That's have to take attendance. Yeah, okay. Sitting with me at the meeting hall here is John Flower and Don Bugby. And other commissioners, could you please chime in if you're here? I hear Missy's not going to be here, but any other commission members, please let me know if you're there so we can take it. Who's
Mary
that?
Ellen.
Mary Ellen? Okay, Mary Ellen, good.
Glenn is here.
Oh, Glenn, you're here too. Okay, good. Anyone?
Brendan is here. Tim is here.
Brendan and Tim, you're both here? So I guess that's it.
Here.
Yeah, all right, so the only one missing is Missy. Okay, now that we have taken attendance, the next matter is we have to vote on whether to approve the previous minutes from the November 5th meeting. Does anyone have anything to add or subtract to it? Would be my first question.
No.
No. Hearing no, I mean, they look fine to me. If no one has any comments on it, would someone please make a motion to approve the minutes of November 5th?
I so moved to make a motion.
Okay.
It's Glenn.
Glenn, okay, second.
Yeah.
I wasn't at the meeting.
Oh, you weren't at that's right, you weren't at the last meeting, John. Would somebody like to second that?
I'll second it. Tim will second it.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from November 5th, please respond.
Aye.
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 Okay. Anyone opposed? I don't hear anything. And anyone abstain? I think,
I wasn't there.
John, you're abstaining because you weren't at the last meeting. Okay. All right. So that matter's taken care of. The next is the director's report.
Okay, we'll start out with winter programs. Currently, there are no Parks and Rec programs running as previously stated in the November 5th meeting. Based on current COVID situations, I think winter programs most likely will not run either. The the District 18 buildings are closed for use at 4 p.m. each day and closed on weekends. So I'm requesting that the Parks and Rec Commission's input and vote on the subject, similar to what we did in the fall, and we vote, should we have these programs or not? These programs would include youth basketball, adult basketball, and yoga. Can we have some discussion and maybe a consensus to call it off?
Well, the first question I have, it sounds like if the high school and the schools are closed, we don't have any place to have these programs, do we?
That's correct. I'm just trying to bring everybody on board and be on the same page.
Oh, anybody else, commissioners, want to comment on it?
We have to follow what the school is doing.
Right, if we have no place for these programs, I guess someone should make a motion that we're not going to have the winter sports programs this particular year.
Okay, I'll make a motion, this is John Flower, that we don't have any winter sports programs due to the fact that we have no facilities to accommodate them.
Okay, anyone want to second that? And then we'll have a discussion.
I'll second it. It's Glenn.
Okay, that's second by Glenn. Any more discussion about that? No? I think that it's awful hard to have a program if you don't have a facility. But anyway, okay, so all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Okay, anyone opposed? No one's opposed, and anyone abstaining? Okay, all right. Maybe the little kid who was in the back said something. But anyway, okay. No one abstains. All right. So we're done. Is that enough for you, Don?
No, that's just.
I mean, is that enough for that particular?
For that subject, yes.
Okay. Yes.
All right. Just looking forward to summer camps. I spoke briefly about this last time, but I'll go over it again. I'm looking into a variety of sport camps. First one is called Skyhawk Sports Academy. This is a nationwide organization that specializes in youth camps with a variety of activities. The host towns provide the facility, and Skyhawks provides coaches, equipment, curriculum, marketing assistance, and insurance. The next group I'm looking into is typically what we had the last several years, UK soccer. Our week-long camp is usually in August, and the Lime Parks and Rec camp is usually in June. Another soccer school camp that I'm looking at is called Everton International Soccer Schools. This is new. Some people from UK broke off and started their own stuff. And there are 3 levels of this camp, and I have been in contact by email and phone with everybody from these programs and the representatives, and I will be meeting with each person in person soon, and I'll give you updates. Our typical summer camp lineup may be impacted by COVID. If that's the case, school facilities may not be available, and I have in continued contact with the superintendent about this, and updates will be provided. On to facilities. White Sand Beach, Cross Lane, Townwoods Park buildings, as previously reported, are closed for the season. Townwoods Park gate is still being open and closed each day. This will continue based on the weather. The fields at Townwoods Park are in very good shape and are still being used by small groups. The fall cleanup process at Townwoods Park by our maintainer has been completed, and Haines Park and Cross Lane Park fall cleanup by Public Works has started and should be completed in a day or 2. Up at Townwoods Park, early November, we had a Lyme resident damage some property at Townwoods Park with her car. A small parking lot light, a sign on the senior center property were run over and damaged, and she drove through 2 sections of chain link fencing between Townwoods Park and the senior center. I was there in the morning, I didn't witness it, but I was there early in the morning, and I contacted Public Works about fixing it, and the Lyme police, and they both came there, and they're both on the case.
Were they detected by that new camera that they put?
No, she showed up the next day. She came back.
Okay.
Okay. More facilities. The 3 tennis court and 2 basketball courts at Cross Lane have been crack sealed as previously reported. Again, this is a temporary fix. I have met with several vendors on site and secured estimates for crack repairs and or replacement of the courts. These estimates will be provided in the 2021 budget process, and options for 2 pickleball courts are also included, and updates will be provided. 2021 budget. I'm presently working on the 2021 budget. The review by the Board of Finance has not yet been scheduled, and updates will be provided. Safety Committee input. As Chairman of the Safety Committee, I was tasked by First Selectman Griswold to assist with the development of COVID guidelines and protocols for Town of Lyme employees. I have been working on this project with Mr. Griswold and Dave Roberts, the Emergency Management Director. What we're putting together, my recommendation is to have all these items reviewed by the town's attorney and be approved by the Board of Selectmen prior to release to employees, and updates will be provided. Additionally, the 2021 safety meeting schedule has been announced. We are required to meet quarterly, and I have scheduled meetings for January, April, July, and October 2021. I am requesting that if any Parks and Rec Commissioner who identifies a safety-related issue at any of our properties to report this to me immediately, please. And that's it for Director's report.
Okay. Any commissioner have a question for Don about the report or a comment?
Don, it's Brendan. Yeah, I do. Don, it's Brendan McKeever. Hey, so
I've been approached by numerous parents about having some of the kids in my older son's age groups, that would be U11, U12, he's 10, he's in 5th grade, about having stuff at Town Wood, etc. And I've said no on all of it for a bunch of different reasons. But I guess I'm curious, like, is there a position as far as the safety goes, etc., for how many people can be down there at one time? Could there be a 7v7 scrimmage between kids? You know, I don't know if the town has any position on it or not, but I'm asked a lot about it.
Well, I don't have much of an answer about that stuff right now, Brendan, but I do know that a while back, I don't know if I have it with me tonight, that the Parks and Rec Commission issued a bunch of rules about using facilities, and then they kind of eased up a little bit, and I don't have it with me. Bob, you might remember some of the things
it's on the website about, to be smart and socially distance and not to have competitive sports or that and other and in particular most of the sports were addressed. Now, I think what we said at one of the meetings is we were, as far as just individuals going out there or small groups, we're going to adhere to the state guidelines. I know the initial guideline for what do you call the small groups? The
cohorts.
Initially, I think was 10. And Brendan, has that changed much? I know at one point it changed and they let more people get together. But then with the latest outbreak happening, they're tightening those regulations. So I would suggest that must be on whatever the latest one, because they expanded like in-house dining, in-restaurant dining, and then they came back, correct? And they did the same thing with the cohort business, I believe.
If I remember correctly, Brendan, I think the latest thing from the governor's office was that all club-type activities were canceled going forward.
So that would be the answer, probably.
Something like that. That's the answer, right? Just as far as that goes. Okay.
Yeah.
I figured my intuition was correct. I just wanted to run it by the commission to, I guess, also update that, there's a lot of interest out there. I don't know who's been out there, if anybody, but
yeah, there's people there almost every night. There's some small groups of people there quite often during the week. I think that kind of separates from the club activity, even though they might be club members, like a group of kids go down there and do some stuff. I think if the soccer club organized some stuff, that might be crossing the line a little bit with the current request from the governor's office.
Yeah, based on the fact
I would agree.
that they expanded the business, and what they call it, the latest was phase 3, and then they cut back again to phase 2A or something. So Brendan, maybe, because I don't have that information in front of me, but I would suggest that anyone that asks you, you could just say, we're following the state guidelines, and see what the latest guideline is from the state as far as how big the groups could be that practice or kick the ball around out there.
Sure. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else in reference to the director's report, or have a question for Don or the commission? No? Okay, commissioners. On to the next one. The Haines Park bathroom project update.
All right. As of today, the building obviously has been framed, sheathed, windows installed, roof shingled, siding installed, exterior doors installed, rough plumbing, electrical completed, sidewalks poured, backfilling is going on presently. The water storage tanks in the crawl space below are expected soon. Next up is sheetrock, the epoxy floors, and fixture installation. There are weekly meetings at minimum with the contractor. Everything appears to be on schedule, and all required inspections have been completed. There has been recent discussion about an exterior shower. This was not included in the part of the project, but was previously requested by Mrs. Fuchs. After recent discussions with myself, Phil Parchek, the building committee chairman, and Skip Sibley, a committee member, it was noted that the best time to install this feature would be now from a construction standpoint. Mr. Parchek believes this should be a foot shower, but is obtaining estimates for both an upper unit and a foot shower. The funding for this unit would come from the Haines Park Improvement Fund, not the project funds. The Parks and Recreation Commission is requested to discuss this process and come to a consensus about it. My concerns with the shower and the boathouse water spigot presently are the lack of sufficient water from the existing well. So, anybody like to comment further?
John, during my tenure working in the health department in Oline, when you put an outdoor shower in, it has to connect to a septic system, and I went to investigate that today to see, but in the health department, no one was, the sanitarian wasn't there. So I just heard about this today. So I was going to call my cohorts up at the state and ask them what the story is, but all the years I worked here, outdoor showers had to be connected to the septic system because your soap and water and showering was considered domestic sewerage, which has to go into a tank. But I will find out further on that.
Yeah, could you please find out what the current regulation is?
Correct.
On that?
Yeah.
And I think I'd like to make a comment. I know at one point Phil Parchek, Don, and I were discussing, I guess we're all waiting to see if this reserve, what is it, 800-gallon system is going to be able to support usage of just the bathroom, because there's question whether or not the output from the well is so meager that that we want to make sure at least the bathroom will function correctly, and that I know when Phil, Don, and I spoke about it, we said, well, maybe we could put some sort of valve hookup on the reserve system so that if we found out after seasons worth of use that the water supply would be sufficient for the bathroom, then maybe some estimate can be made if there's sufficient water to actually run a shower. And that's something that I think we're going to have to wait until we get data on, and that was my impression of what the status of the shower was going to be, although it was still going to be maybe in the plans, and that it wasn't a bad idea, it was a good idea. In fact, in the December meeting, we had some questions about whether or not, I mean, that was just initially when we heard about Candace Fuchs came to the commission and wondered about it, and we said, yeah, not a bad idea, but we have to look into certain things. And one of them was a cost estimate, and at that meeting, I believe I asked Candace to work with the Phil Parchek and that committee to find out what funds would be necessary, and I guess we would have to check with Nicole if we could use the donation money, but it seems to us that you probably could use the donation money to pay for it. The other thing was there any type of state regulations regarding runoff and stating there'd be no violations if this shower was put somewhere in that park? And that what rules apply to the location? And John, you just came up with one that...
Right, I believe that it has to go into a septic tank.
And then the question would be, could the septic system handle that? And someone would have to make an estimate on that. And of course, the biggest question was the 800-gallon reserve system sufficient to include a shower? After all, the most important part is it has to support the bathroom facility. And then there was also a question about, could the boathouse use that water from that system? And the fourth point was, and I asked Phil Parchek about this, since the boats basically come out of the lake and then go in the lake the next day, if you want to wash the boats down, could a will the state or regulations allow a submersible pump in the lake that can be hooked up somehow near the boathouse in order to wash down the boats? And at this point, I don't think we have answers to any of these questions, definitive answers. And so that I think, I mean, the one real good one, John, is about the runoff. Because the other thing is, I know in the old days on beaches and stuff, you'd have these showers and it goes into sand. Well, what are we going to do out there? Even if you built a concrete platform, if the water's going to run off somewhere, is that going to create some sort of mud situation? We don't have the answer to that either. Right? So, anybody else Commissioner, want to comment about that?
No.
No.
Even though it may save a few bucks in the short run to do it right now, none of these questions have been sufficiently answered, and could be tremendous impediments to putting a shower out there. Especially the most important one will be whether or not this water reserve system is going to be even able to run the bathrooms, which I know Phil is concerned about, and also Don, you mentioned concern about that too, correct?
Every time I talk about it.
Yep. So, so at this time, I think we have to answer a lot of those questions. It sounds like John's gonna find out some information. We won't be able to find out if the system's sufficient until we have a dry run through a season. And so I think it's still in play, but we don't have the answer whether or not it's practical to do it at this point. Correct, John?
I agree. If it does have to go into a septic system, what you have to do with that is it has to be covered so rainwater doesn't get into it and go into your septic. And then it has to have a trap, and so therefore every winter you have to put antifreeze in the trap. So it gets a little complicated.
Any other commissioner want to comment on that? I'm not hearing anything. Is anybody, commissioner, speaking?
No comment from me.
No comment.
No.
Okay, so Don, we're going to continue to get more answers about whether or not it will be practical.
Okay.
And if it is, I think it would be not a bad idea to have one, but it sounds like there's going to be some impediments. Correct, John? Yeah. So, I think that's where we are at this point. It's still going to be looked at, but at this point, this is not the time to make a decision about that.
Right, well, one other question is, I know nothing about this as far as what the request was, but if it's an actual shower that you shower under with soap and water and shampoo, that's the one that I believe has to go into a septic system. If you are just, it's out by the beach and it's just at knee height, and you're just cleaning the sand off your feet, that's a little different. So I think something like that can be done, and quite easily, but that doesn't account for the water. But as far as hooking into the septic system, I believe you would be able to do that, because when I've had previous meetings in the past discussing this issue with the outdoor showers, it was always the soap and bacteria from your body, whereas if you're just getting your sand washed off your feet, that's not the same animal. So I don't know which they're looking for, a shower or a foot wash.
Well, I think the most important question is talk to Ledgelight to find out what the rules and regulations are on that.
I agree.
And are there any state regulations of how close you could put something like that to a lake situation? From runoff and stuff. And I'm personally concerned about any type of runoff would create, unless you have it somehow in the sand or put it into the septic system, would create a potential mud situation if lots of people were using it, or at least soggy soil. Okay, so we'll continue to look at that, and we'll see what transpires. Okay, on to the next one. It's status of the agreement slash path from 176 Boston Post Road to Town Docks in Haines Park. We received at after 9 o'clock or something last night, that personally I didn't see until mid-morning, an email from Greg Hack that at the last Park and Rec meeting, the commissioners asked me to send a message to Greg of, let's get going on this agreement and what are the issues, and because I think it's important if I can just remind everyone of back in 2017, and now this is on the Park and Rec website, the policy for scheduling and usage of Haines Park. And at that time, I'm just going to read the first part, but I would like Mary Ellen to put this policy, attach it to this particular meeting minutes. Haines, I just want to go over this first part because basically there's nothing in here that includes this second boat storage facility. So that's why we have to probably have some sort of agreement to include it, because the current policy is, which will probably have to be updated, is that Haines Park is owned by the town of Old Lyme and is overseen by Old Lyme Parks and Recreation Commission. Its general use is restricted to Old Lyme town residents. In 2017, the town of Old Lyme completed the construction of a new boathouse in Haines Park to support the regional school, District 18 school, and community rowing programs, funded in part by a Connecticut DEEP STEEP grant. To comply with Connecticut DEEP STEEP grant post-construction requirements, the boathouse and its community rowing program will be open to the general public. Regional School District 18 has leased the boathouse and is responsible for overseeing the school and community rowing program in partnership with its subleasee, the Old Lyme Rowing Association. The boathouse is typically open from mid-March to mid-December. When the school and community rowing programs are in session, rowing program participants will also have limited access to additional park facilities that support the rowing program and which are shared with Old Lyme residents. The Haines Park docks, restrooms, parking lot, and driveways and walkways to the boathouse. Haines Park facilities that will continue to be available only to Old Lyme town residents unless the use for a special event is specifically approved by the Old Lyme Parks and Recreation Director, include the playground, swimming beach, basketball court, and picnic areas. The following rules and policies for Haines Park have been established to allow the safe and responsible use by all park visitors. And the first is Old Lyme town residents, general use of all Haines Park facilities, except the boathouse, unless enrolled in a school or community rowing program. The second limited use is for the Old Lyme High School, access to the boathouse and related facilities solely for the high school rowing programs. And the third one is the general public, access to the boathouse and related facilities solely for the community rowing program. Well, when you look at this, the 176 Boston Post Road project is not covered in this and basically is at the other end of the park. So because of that, we wanted to set up some sort of special limited use agreement. Now this agreement, we first talked about it back in June. It was finally finalized by the Parks and Rec Commission and the town attorneys, and this proposal was at the request also of the first selectman, Tim Griswold of Old Lyme. Now, when it comes down to who sets the policy, We go back to Ordinance 20-8 for the duties of the Old Lyme Parks and Rec Commission. The responsibility for the management, control, and development of town recreational facilities and expenditures made in connection therewith is vested in the Parks and Rec Commission. So, with the approval of the Parks and Rec Commission, the first selectman who requested a written agreement, and with the review by the town's attorneys, we came up with the proposed agreement for permission to use a limited path for limited use in Haines Park for transporting boats from the 176 Boston Post Road property. Now, as everyone knows, we're trying to work with the people, the LLC, to make this work for them, even though all the rest of the public has to access the park through the driveways. So we came up with this agreement, and as I said, we received late last night a email from Greg Hack at 9:17. He sent it. I personally didn't see it until mid-morning, and I would like that response that he wrote, he included, to be included in the minutes of this particular meeting. However, because we didn't really have much chance to even look at this and see what the current response from the 176 LLC has been, I think we're best to discuss this in more length when we have more time to absorb it and see what any reactions may be from the commission on this. And right now, I think what we'll do is we'll discuss this at further length at the next meeting. John, would you agree?
Yeah, that's fine. I just read it late this morning also.
Yeah, and that, but any initial reactions from any of the commissioners about what we received late last night? Anybody?
Well, it seems to me that way back when this first came up, we, at first it was, they were trying to make a landlocked property, a waterfront property, by just scooting across park property. And then towards the end of the meeting, we kind of decided on, well, maybe we can work out some kind of scenario that would work. And I thought we were on course for that. And it appears now with these latest email that I guess they're not amenable to any type of, agreement to protect the residents of Old Lyme. But, so, I think we need a little time to discuss this. That's my opinion.
And then
I think I agree with you, John.
Yeah, and the other thing is that in that email and response, Greg suggested, and we talked about this at the last meeting, that their attorney sits down with our attorney and works out an agreement. Well, it's the attorneys, it's not their responsibility to manage and control the town park recreational facilities. It's the responsibility of the Old Lyme, not Rowing Association, the Old Lyme Parks and Rec Commission. Mm-hmm. And we were hoping to come to an equitable agreement here. And what we had asked too previously is if the LLC or their attorney had any particular problems with the agreement that was laid out and presented to them beginning of September, that they first forward their concerns about particular parts of the agreement to myself, so I could distribute it to the Parks and Rec Commission, and also to the first selectman who requested a written agreement. And being that it's just basically being rejected forthright, the whole thing, even though it's very similar to agreements that we made for the school and the school made with the rowing association. This is a special type of agreement and that we're trying to forward and move forward on with the LLC. And at this point, I think we have to digest a little bit more and see where we go moving forward. Anybody else have, I mean, because I think we really would like to try and work something out to help the LLC members out. But if they're not going to agree...
No, I agree with you, Bob. I definitely agree with you, but I do think we need more time to just really narrow things down and see exactly where we're going with it.
Right. Because I also have heard that half the property is fenced in a park, and like a lot of our park facilities are fenced in. I mean, that maybe would be a possibility if we can't work out an agreement, although I think we're all hoping we can work out some sort of agreement rather than fencing the second half of Haines Park in. Correct, John?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Anybody else, any other commissioner have any comment on that? But this is kind of, we have to come to a resolution on this in the near future, I think.
Yes, I agree.
Because this has been...
I agree with you on that, too.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any other
We need a resolution, but we need to make sure that on both sides are completely in agreement and, we understand what's going on.
Like for instance, Don to this date has never received an insurance document that from the LLC that we want the town and them to be protected, because this is a new group of boats that's not under the school agreement and under their liability insurance agreements, and we haven't received that. We've asked one possibility was they could use the 10 feet of property from the next door neighbor, and we asked to see something in writing, but not from the people that are renting the house, from the owners. I forget, I don't have it in front of me, that LLC that owns that house that's between 176. And we haven't received that. So basically, like, I think we all have to sit down and maybe we'll discuss this at greater length at the next meeting, since we just received this latest thing at the last minute here. Would everybody, does any commissioners agree we should bring more of this up next meeting and talk about possible ways to move forward, or because we're just not going to let attorneys figure out a policy for a town park. It's the town and the Park and Rec Commission's responsibility to do that. Now, if they want to change some of the legalese, so be it. But to this point, we still haven't received anything other than there's no agreement at all. They don't want to sign this agreement, and if they don't sign this agreement, we're going to have to figure out how to move forward from them, right, John?
I agree.
Yeah, Don, how about you?
I think it would be helpful. I don't know if Don or Bob talked to them, but I think it would be helpful if they. What is the counter? What's their counter? In other words, I have to confess, I barely read this letter. But it seems that they reject the entire agreement in whole.
That's what it seems like,
Brendan. Willing to compromise. What's the compromise? That would help a great deal if, on some level, they could present to the commission what their counter proposal is, as opposed to saying that everything in there is discriminatory. That's my opinion, anyway. I mean, we can sit there and talk about this. I mean, we've been talking about it since June, and we're back apparently to square zero. And I don't know. To me, it doesn't look like anything's going to get accomplished.
Well, something will get accomplished.
Oh.
It's a matter of what the...
I mean, I don't mean to be negative about it, but it would help tremendously on their end. I'm sure they're going to listen to these minutes. It would help tremendously on their end if they sent over a counter proposal for whatever their grievances may be relative to the proposed agreement that we presented to them. If it's a line item thing, great. We can talk about it. We can send it through. We can look it over. But I mean, unless I'm missing something, I don't, to me, they're saying they don't want to have anything in writing. Let's compromise.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's not going to fly with the first selectman or the Park and Rec Commission. There has to be some sort of agreement. And I agree with you, Brendan. And as I've stated before, we've asked that what are the particular items that are contentious or whatever, and why are they contentious? But it's up to, if they're not going to sign this agreement, it's up to them to put something in writing as to what their issues are. Correct, Brendan? I mean,
well, it would certainly help me specifically as a commissioner, but I think the commission as a whole, if we just had an understanding as to what it is that they agree on that's in there, if anything. Because if they don't agree on anything that's in there, then this is a dead issue. There's nothing more to talk about, in my opinion.
Right, good
but
point.
If there are things that, what's that, John?
I just said good point. I mean, you're correct.
yes, I say so too.
But if there are things that we can agree on that are in there, that's certainly a starting point. And more important, what are the really brass tack things that they disagree with? And maybe there is a compromise in there. But until then, I mean, this conversation is gonna stop tonight and just continue right where it left off next month, unless we have, in my opinion, something else from them other than saying that it's discriminatory and they're not going to sign it. There's got to be something else from them for us to kind of gnaw, I think. I mean, that's just my opinion.
No, I agree with you.
Agree with you, Brendan.
Yeah, anybody else?
Definitely.
I agree with what you're talking about too, Brendan, and in fact, this is what we've requested all along. We're just not going to let their attorney and the town attorney set policy when it's the responsibility of the Park and Rec and the town to do that for the town parks. So we can, if we know what some of the talking points may be, maybe we can continue in a more productive manner. But so far, this has not been productive at all, other than they just seem to refuse to sign this or even discuss any parts of this. Correct? I mean,
right. I mean, when we first brought this up back in June, whenever we talked about it, and we had some constructive requirements, and I thought, personally, I thought everything was all set. And now that I read this morning that there's just a total rejection of everything, I think you're right, Brendan, that it's kind of a moot point at this point, unless they come up with something.
I mean, I just don't know where the conversation begins on our end next month with my limited reading of this, which is we reject it.
Right. Unless something's in writing.
If they reject any agreement, then there's nothing further to really discuss. I don't think. That's not a threat. It's just there's a compromise in there somewhere. It would help the commission, I believe, if they had a counter proposal in light of what's been proposed so far from the commission, the town's attorney. That would help tremendously for us to figure out a way in a cooperative manner to move this forward. I think it's possible. I think it's something that the commission is certainly open to.
Oh, certainly.
But we can't start again from ground zero. There's a lot of kind of grunt work to get to where we are now, and you know, I don't think it's going to work. We got to restart again. There's nothing to restart.
No, yeah, and not only that, the town attorneys, these are the same bunch of lawyers and very similar legalese that we've already used to have limited use of Haines Park usage for the school and for the community rowing program and the Old Line Rowing Association, and so basically it was no problem with the schools or rowing association agreeing to these things. I don't, unless the LLC comes up with certain points in writing, or their attorney can do it if they want. we're not going to go back to ground zero, I agree, Brendan, and start all this process again, because we have a perfectly sound agreement according to the Park and Rec Commission. The first selectman has agreed to this, and also the town attorneys. So, yeah, I think the consensus is, should I send a email or a correspondence to Mr. Hack about we want something in writing along those lines of what the...
Well, I think it would, I think, and again, I don't want to speak for everybody, it would certainly help me, and probably all of us, if there was some type of counter. I mean, for example, for what it is that the proposed agreement is, what is it specifically that's the issue in there? I mean, just reading on this quick, I think part of the reason why Don hasn't gotten any insurance is because they don't think they should be providing any insurance.
Correct.
So that's kind of a non-starter, I think, from the town's position.
Of course it is, because every organization has to have proof of liability insurance to use town park property. And this is, this is just a small group of individuals, but they are adding new boats to the usage of this park, and certainly when we made the rules and talked to the school back in 2017 and came up with the policies, the whole idea was to have them have limited use of that side of the park where the boathouse is, except for facilities like the restrooms and the parking lot, which is laid out, and that's why I want the LLC members to take a look at what the policy is for Haines Park. And we're just trying to protect, I would imagine they should have insurance to protect themselves, and we want to have liability insurance to protect the town. And so I would say this too, and it's worth noting that if Attorney McNamara is still their lawyer, he is a very reasonable, very smart, very well-respected guy in the legal community. So, he's somebody who can really make this work on both ends. So, Bob, if you're going to send them an email, I would maybe just stress that, any type of counter proposal will just help us tremendously figure out if we can actually make this work. And we're willing to make it work. So just tell us what it is that specifically your issues are within the four corners of that document, but we can't just strike out the whole document. That's not, that isn't going to work. I wouldn't think it. I'm in total agreement with you, Brendan. So is it the consensus of the commission that I send a correspondence to Mr. Hack about, what parts of this agreement, what parts of this agreement don't they agree on? What is our counter proposal? And then we can decide whether or not to get the town's attorneys involved and to rewrite parts of this agreement, but certainly a lot of time and money was already spent putting this agreement together, which was agreed upon by people on the town side of this. Would the commission want me to write something to ask for this counter proposal?
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's a good idea.
Mary Ellen, how about you?
I agree, Bob. Yes.
I agree. I think that's the way to go.
Okay. Tim, you're there?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to go. Otherwise, I think we just
run around in circles. So we're
right back to we need to go right back to, okay, you are treated like everybody else. You come in the way everybody else does.
Yeah.
Which we don't want to do, but it's kind of forcing our hand.
Yeah.
I concur.
That's the way it stands.
Yeah, I agree with that, Tim. We've been making a special effort to try and get some sort of agreement here, and if they're just against the whole agreement, well, I don't think that's gonna work at all. Because basically they have a landlocked property, so they could come in like any other person on landlocked property to get access to the town dock facilities. Yeah. Okay. Any other commissioner like to comment on that? Don, would you like to comment? No. Okay. I think that's that's where we are. We'll see what happens in the next month before our January meeting, which will be on Thursday, January 7th. And then if we have more information, maybe we can come to a better resolution at that time. But also, well, I think I'm going to put it in the correspondence that we certainly don't want to receive something that we have to comment with the morning of a meeting. That, I mean, we need little lead time. What would the commission? What would the commission say? At least a week or two lead time, or just so we can absorb some of this?
Yeah, several days at least. Yeah.
Well, I'd say probably just.
Because I just read it really briefly. I didn't have a chance to really read it more than once.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't look at it until about 9:30 this morning because.
I was way later than that.
Yeah, I'm not on the computer all the time. I check maybe once a day my emails and. Okay. So we'll move on. There's commission agreement to move on, and I'll put something together to send out so that we can find out what their particular disagreements are or what their counterproposal may be. But it has to be in writing because it has to be something that we can look at and discuss rather than just.
Agreed, wholeheartedly. Yeah. And the in writing is critical, for sure.
Right. Okay. All right. So then we're going to some new business. Jim Ward, who came to or at least spoke to, part of our meeting last time in November, was talking about the possibility of a community vegetable garden out in Town Woods Park, and it was a misunderstanding. It's going to be right in back of the building, which at that point of the field house, which I said based on the past, because of vernal pool there's no, it has to be at least 100 feet away. That site probably wasn't going to work. But then Jim said, well, it's a possibility that where the baseball fields are, if you look towards the property that goes towards the stream in the back there may be a sufficient area for his, what did he say he needed, Don, about an acre of property? Or?
I forget what he said.
I forget what he said too. But he has scheduled with the wetlands people a site walk for this Saturday at 9 o'clock to find out whether or not there's enough area away from wetlands and away from the baseball fields to maybe make this a reality. So I invite any commissioner, or anybody for that matter, that would be interested in this community vegetable garden possibility to come to Town Woods Park on. Now, listening to the weather forecast, sounds like Saturday's not going to be the day to do it. It's going to pour rain or snow or something. So we may have to reschedule that. Maybe, Don, if you could talk to Jim. Based on the weather forecast, Saturday's not going to be an ideal day, it seems, with all-day rain or snow forecast for Saturday, starting sometime Friday night. I just caught the weather right before I came here. So if you could call Jim and see if we can reschedule, and I can get something out to everybody. Okay. If it could be rescheduled for Sunday or some other day, it's not going to rain. But anyway, so that's where that's at, and I'm glad Jim had contacted the wetlands people, but now I think it's just let's maybe set up a different date to do it where the weather's going to cooperate. Anybody else want to say anything about that, commissioners? No? Okay.
No.
Nothing for me.
Nothing for me.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, any other new business?
Yeah, I have a couple things.
Okay.
First thing, I don't know if you saw it, Bob, I got an email today about the 2021 schedule. It has to be recorded ahead of time
Right, I got that too from the selectman's office.
Okay.
So my plan is to submit that tomorrow.
Okay.
Because the next meeting will be on Thursday,
January
7th, but I will give the full calendar for meetings for
Okay.
21, okay?
That was the first issue. No problem. I just want to make sure we got that.
Yep.
The next issue, Brendan, maybe you could help me out with this too. You might know something about it by being a member of the soccer club. On November 17th, I met with the Lima Soccer Club president, and the discussion was centered around the possibility of Lima Soccer Club falling under the heading of O-Line Parks and Recreation. The organization would continue to operate independently just as they do now, but would come under the town of O-Line's mostly insurance coverage. They have been experiencing, we've talked about this before, insurance coverage problems during and for COVID-related situations. They are looking into another soccer organization who they believe can insure them, but those plans are incomplete. We had a nice discussion about it. This request is similar to one that I received years ago from Lime Little League. At that time, insurance costs were rising, and they were looking for ways to alleviate that. And further investigation revealed that if Lime Little League O-Lime did that, all of the teams would be ineligible for tournament play per Little League baseball and softball organization. So they decided to pay for the insurance. I explained this to the Lima Soccer Club president, is unsure if the same circumstances would apply in this time. So if anybody has any comments about that, it's not a definite by any means. It was just a discussion about a possibility to try to help alleviate the situations that they are in presently with COVID stuff. Period.
Yeah, well, I understand that's the reason why their season was, well, one of the reasons why the soccer club season was canceled this year was because they couldn't get insurance past, I think it was like August 31st or something.
Right.
But Don, you make a point, and it was something I was thinking of when you were talking about it. The affiliations, though, would matter. So wouldn't that mean that, like, how would that work with playing other towns and everything? How does that work?
I have no idea. I think the soccer club has the biggest responsibility here to figure out all those details and present them again. And then the second part of it is if the Parks and Rec Commission has any thoughts or think this is an okay idea to look into or one that should not be done. So I think there's nothing that's going to be resolved tonight for sure. I just want everybody to be aware of it and start thinking about it and go from there.
Let me ask you a question, Don. This all came, and Brendan, maybe you know too, this all came up because we're in unusual times here with COVID and basically, was that why this insurance business has come up now?
Yes.
Yeah, because
and
if COVID goes away with vaccines for next fall and everyone's vaccinated and all, this would be might be a non-issue with the soccer club.
That's what I would guess. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I just think everyone's just going to have to bite the bullet, and things aren't going to be the way they were until there's herd immunity and vaccinations and all this. And hopefully, if you listen to the news, they're talking about it, possibility maybe the summer or the fall, quote, returning to, quote, semi-normal or normal. So for their next season, maybe it's not going to be an issue, Don.
It might not be.
And Brendan, what do you think? I mean, Brendan?
Yeah, well, who knows? I mean, who knows? But it might not be an issue at all. Yeah. And I think Don's right, though. I think the onus is on the soccer club or any other club to kind of put together all those, the nuance of what would work. But I guess my question would be, though, Don, how does that if more, does that affect like costs for the insurance with the town, or no? It's just I don't know. I guess I don't understand the insurance aspect of it.
I really don't either. I really don't either. I was under the assumption, with some discussions, that our insurance does not have the same restrictions as the situation that they faced. So, I don't know. I mean, again, this could be a complicated situation for a lot of reasons, and certainly nothing's going to be decided tonight. I just want to throw it out there to get everybody thinking about it, and go from there.
And I think one issue too is that you set a precedent that the soccer club could come somehow under Park and Rec and the town's insurance policy. Well, then lacrosse club, you want to do it? Well, the baseball you said couldn't do it because they couldn't compete. Is that how I heard correctly?
Little League could have been run by Parks and Recreation, but they were ineligible for any postseason tournaments plays under the National Little League organization. I don't think with the soccer club, it's, as far as I know, it's O-line and line kids only. The lacrosse club is different because it's 3, 4, or however many towns are involved. I think that's a little bit different. Right. I don't think, just say for instance, if we did this with the soccer club, I don't think it would open the door exactly for other people to do the same thing. It would be dependent on what their organization is all about and who's involved with it, I think.
So has the soccer club found out that could they compete in soccer tournaments if
that's one thing that they have to find out.
Okay, so that's the onus is on them to
definitely. And they know that, and it was a good discussion, and just throwing it out there. And
so once again, we need something, I believe, in writing that they have done their due diligence to find out whether or not
they could very easily. I forget the name of the second organization they're looking into. They very easily could say we're going to go under them, and it's all set.
Yeah.
So we're searching because of the situation that they were forced into this past few months.
So, could you contact them about,
Yeah.
Find that, put something in writing for us for what their proposal would be, rather than just talk?
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay. Any other commissioner want to comment on that? John, no. Anybody out there on telephone land want to comment? Commissioners?
No.
No, nothing for me.
No.
Okay. Then we'll move on. Any other new business? Don or anybody else?
Not for me.
Not for me.
Not for me.
Yeah?
Not for me.
Okay. So then we get to the last one, public comment. Anybody out there in the public would like to say a few words?
This is Skip Sibley.
Yes, hi Skip.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? I think this is specific, my comments are specific to the possibility of installing an outdoor shower out at the Haines Park.
Yes.
I think it's really smart of the commission to slow this thing down and figure out the right way to do this. There is no plan, and I know Don's there. Phil, I don't think is on this call, but my impression when we were talking about this was what John Flower described was something to just basically rinse the sand off your feet, not a full-fledged shower, no hot water, no shampoo and soap and all that other, because that definitely will complicate things. But just a simple, knee-high foot, so you rinse the sand off, which would be kind of nice, coming off the sandy beach. It wouldn't even have to be located close to the restroom. We could figure out, if that's the way we want to go, where it could be maybe down near the sand so that the water could dissipate and go into the sand, and I think that would be fine. But I think the commission's approach to slow it down and think this through is the right way. But I just wanted to get that on the record. That was when we were in the building, I'm on the building committee, when we were discussing that, that was my vision. I certainly can't speak for the other members of the committee, but I just wanted to let you guys know I think you're doing a good job.
Okay, thanks for those comments.
That's nice,
Skip.
thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is the one. If we can possibly make it work in the future, I think it's not a bad idea. But if it's not going to work I think the biggest concern that Don and myself and Phil and probably other members of the building committee have is this water reserve system going to work just to support the bathroom? And until we realize that's a yes or a no, then we can go on and maybe talk more about the shower business.
Yep, I thought your idea to install a submersible pump to rinse off the boats is probably the best way to go. Rinsing off your feet, it certainly doesn't have to be potable well water. You could do that in a similar way. You know, you could use lake water. That's really would do what your job is. I mean, the purpose is to just get the sand off your feet. So maybe you look at the lake as a potential source.
Right, that's another possibility. Yeah, and I think, John, you're going to find out more from Ledge Light about what the possibilities could be.
But the lake water, that solves all the problems.
I think that Phil told me it's probably doable to have a submersible pump somewhere to have lake water to wash off the rowing boats and maybe even Skip, as you say, maybe even to set up some sort of thing by the beach to wash off your feet.
Yep.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Well, we have to look into that, and we have to make sure we make the right decision and decisions that'll work, and let's not rush into anything until we can be sure that it will work. Yep.
Exactly.
Commissioners, yep. I think everybody, we went over that before. But okay, well, thank you for those comments, Skip. Anyone else from the public want to make a comment? Now, hearing that no one else wants to make a comment, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Okay, and Mary Ellen, did you second that? That was Glenn. Yeah, okay. All right. Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, anyone opposed? Don't hear anything. Abstain? No? Okay. Meeting's over. Thank you all for listening in and participating, and let's just hope the future is brighter with a vaccine. All right, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.